Hello BookTube and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. So as you can see, this is another video where I'm not showing my face. The video is going to be pointed at the books this time because there are a number of books I wanted to show, so this seemed like the best way to do it. First off is a book haul. I had to run some errands this week, which brought me into downtown Ho Chi Minh City, right across from the bookstore. And I use that as my excuse to go into the bookstore, and I bought a couple comic books. Now, buying books in Vietnam is always hit and miss. You don't always find exactly what you're looking for, but you find something. So, Swamp Thing. I've never read any Swamp Thing before. I've been vaguely interested in the Swamp Thing, but not really interested in it. But this was, they had a handful of comics, and of this looked like from the era that I grew up in, so it is of interest to me, and I guess I have been vaguely curious about the Swamp Thing. The Fantastic Four Mini Marvel Masterworks Volume 2. Now, obviously, it would have been better to start from Volume 1, but again, this is what was in the bookstore. So these are not the very first Fantastic Four stories, but the near the beginning of the Fantastic Four. I did once read some of the early Fantastic Four books when I was studying at the University of Melbourne. They had the Marvel Essentials, those old, those black and white reprints. And they had the early volumes of the Fantastic Four. And at one point I got out of the library Volume 1, which I'm not sure if any of these issues would overlap or not. I don't recognize them. And was disappointed to find out how boring these Fantastic Four stories were, even though I was aware of how important the Fantastic Four are in the history of comic books. These are the comics that began the Stan Lee era. But I found them a bit of a chore to read at the time. Give them another chance, see if these are read any better. And at any rate, I decided that if you're going to run a BookTube channel where you talk about comic books from time to time, at some point you got to read through the classics. And, they don't get any more classic than the early Fantastic Four, unless you go back to the Golden Age. So I figured, just in terms of reading through the classics, it was time to pick this one up. So the price on these were, I don't know. How much are you willing to spend on comic books? So it's $39.99 US, but surprisingly enough, I don't know if anyone has a converter to Vietnamese dong handy, but this is actually cheaper. This is actually about $25, the equivalent of. So $15 less, which is surprising because usually imported books cost more when you buy them in Vietnam. But I'm wondering if maybe these are books that just weren't selling in the U.S., and that's why they ended up on the shelves in the bookstores in Vietnam, perhaps. I mean, who knows? I have no idea why the random books that end up in Vietnam. But still, and especially when you add them together, this one was $15 US and about the equivalent in Vietnam for this one. No discount for this one. It does add up to some money. I did hesitate before making this purchase, thinking if I could justify it to myself. I justified it to myself by saying it had been about half a year since I last bought any comics, and that I plan on donating them to my school library after I finished reading them. I don't know. What was this irresponsible spending on my part? I will get. I'm a slow reader, so I will get many hours out of that price. I don't know, but I bought it. at any rate. So these are my book hauls. This is my book haul for the week. Moving on, I finished up Robin Hood and reviewed it on this channel. So then I next started A Gentleman in Moscow, which we're doing for book club. It's a book I'd never heard of before, but it was selected by my book club at work, and I'm up to page 22 on that. And then continuing my way through classical tragedy, Greek and Roman. Now, last I had read Oedipus the King, and I took a break from this book to watch the film versions of Oedipus the King. The 1957 version and the 1968 version, both of them are available on YouTube. And because I have kids and because I don't have a lot of time to myself, I watched them in short segments every night. I wasn't able to have a whole 2 hours to myself, but I did watch them in little segments. And now I finished both of them, so now I'm on to the next story, Antigone, also by Sophocles, which is also about the Oedipus family. It's kind of a sequel to Oedipus the King, except it was actually written first. Sophocles wrote Antigone first and then went back and wrote Oedipus later. I think I'm getting that right. And I'm up to 290 on Antigone, which is actually almost finished. I've only got a few more pages to go before I finish, and then there's an essay in this edition at the end of every play, which I'm going to read, and then I'll come back with my review for Antigone. Antigone is actually a reread. I did actually read that in 12th grade English. It's the only play in this collection that I've actually read once before. I think the only Greek play, period, I've actually read once before. Okay. And then on to the Bible. I did not make great progress with the Bible this week. And again, that was largely due to being busy this week and not having a lot of time to myself in the evenings. I finished up the genealogy, which actually takes up chapter 9 as well. It's called Jerusalem, the Holy City of Israel, but it's actually more genealogies. And I'm now into the King David story. Although the version in Chronicles is a lot more boring than the version in 1st and 2nd Samuel, because all the juicy, gossipy bits they take out to make David look a lot better. This is an interesting little revisionism going on within the Bible itself. But yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of the King David story in general, so it is just nice to revisit it. And then reading the Old Testament, and I am now up to page 54 there. This is the chapter on archaeology in the Old Testament. Now, I didn't realize when I picked this book up how old it was. But there's a little bit here. It talks about the beginning of the 19th century. So, like 1800. And then it says 150 years on. No, sorry. 150 years later. Lost my place. 150 years later. I thought, 150 years later? That's not right. It's 225 years later. But then I double-checked when this book actually came out. It actually came out in 1969. Although I guess I have a reprint of it, which was printed in maybe 1984. Is that the date of the reprint? I mean, it doesn't look like it's that old of a book, huh? So I don't know how reliable the sections on archaeology is. Come to that, I don't know how much of the history in this full stop has been superseded by more recent evidence. But that being said, I'm so glad I'm reading it. There was some interesting stuff in the parts I read for this week about the people and lands around Israel. The part on the Philistines I thought was very interesting and helped put into perspective the stories I read about Saul and David. And yeah, the Hittite Empire. It's interesting stuff going on here. At some point, I'm gonna have to read a more modern book on biblical scholarship. But for now, I'm glad I'm reading this book. Okay, and before I wrap up this weekly reading vlog, there's one more thing that I'm going to show you, which is the Father's Day gift that I got from my wife just today being Father's Day, which is a camera and a tripod. So I have not invested any money in equipment during the entire time I've been running this channel, which is about, I think, 8 years now. Well, I don't know. You guys who run booktube channels, especially you guys who run small booktube channels like me, maybe you can relate to this. On the one hand, you think to yourselves, geez, I'm spending hours every week doing this. I mean, I will sometimes film 2 or 3 videos a week or more. Maybe it would be nice to actually get some decent equipment so, the sound isn't crap. And it comes through a bit clearer. And, if you've watched this channel, you know that typically because I just... the way I film these videos, excuse me, I'm going to go over here, is I will just rest the camera here on my bookshelf and then sit on my chair here. So, I got a comment just this week. Why is your head framed so weird? And that's because I just put the camera here, and so it just kind of catches the very top of my head. And, of course, there's the fact that because my camera doesn't seem to invert images when I'm filming myself. If I'm filming myself and holding up a book, the book always shows up in mirror images, which again is something I've got comments about. I know it annoys some people. It annoys me, to be honest. So those are things that sound quality, the picture quality, the odd framing will hopefully be better now that I've got a real camera and a real tripod. I've been, like I said, I haven't invested any money into this channel. The entire time I've been using it. First I was using my wife's old camera. Well, first we were using my wife's phone, then my wife's old camera. Then, after that camera died, I've been using my phone, but I've got like one of the cheapest smartphones you can buy. One of the ones that you just buy for $100, and have just been using that. On the other hand, it's been good enough, right? I mean, people seem to be able to understand what I'm saying most of the time. I don't know. This is one of those things. I would not have spent this money myself. I would have thought about it, but then I would have talked myself out of it. I would have said to myself, this is just a stupid little hobby. You get very few views on any video, and you're not very good at it anyways. You have a hard time maintaining a train of thought without going into ums and ers and all that kind of stuff. So don't get carried away investing money in this that could be better spent elsewhere. But it was a gift. And it is kind of, it's my wife's money. So, I mean, essentially we're married. So the money belongs to both of us, really. So essentially this is my money. But it wasn't my decision. But I am looking forward to trying out the new equipment. I am just between us, just between you and me. I'm not entirely sure the amount of money spent. I can justify it, but it's already been spent. It was a Father's Day gift. So I'm not going to second guess it now. We'll go with this. It wasn't an extravagant amount of money. It's just, I live as an English teacher, so small sums to me are significant. Anyways, sorry, I don't mean to get so personal here. Point being, I am going to be experimenting with this new camera in the next few videos. So if you see the future videos looking a little bit different, maybe sounding a little bit better, although I don't know, there's no microphone here or something, but it's gotta sound better than the phone I'm using right now, right? Hopefully this will solve the problem of the books showing up backwards when I hold them up to camera. We'll see. But anyways, look out for some changes. Oh, and I just realized when I was walking over this way that I left a book out. Forgot about Astro Boy, the comic book I'm currently reading, which I'm up to page 392 on so far. Okay, so that is all for this week. Thank you very much, BookTube. I will see you again soon.